Well, it's hard to know when an image turns on you. It's hard to know when an image turns on you. The notoriously graven image of the Ten Commandments, the Decalogue, it's always ringing in our ears. Do not make for yourselves a graven image. And when we see, kind of in our mind's eye, the melted down plunder of the Egyptians, that gold that was made into a calf, when we see that, we know that we are prone to image making. Do it all the time. We make images to help sustain us through the days and through the nights. John Calvin, in fact, once referred to us as idol factories, right? We make idols. And when the business of image making is booming, it is easy to fall in love with every glittering, commercialized thing. It's easy to become distracted with what we see. But it's hard to know when an image might turn on you. And images do turn. It's hard to know how to interpret today's passage in Colossians chapter 1, verse 15. He, Jesus, is the image of the invisible God. I've seen paintings, and perhaps you have too, by Pablo Picasso, Salvador Dali. And when I view these images, these paintings, I am transported on a wave of emotion. These images are that stirring to me emotionally. And when I read Emily Dickinson use the image of a buzzing fly, I heard a fly buzz when I died, she writes. When I read that image, it's somehow more real to me than every fly that I've swatted in my house, right? I can actually feel what it must be like for her to be experiencing death. Images can be a window into authentic emotion, authentic thought. Images also can be a window through which we climb to a better world. Don't you think? But on the other hand, if we're not careful, if we're not thoughtful and discerning, an image might be the very thing that smothers us with broken glass. Years ago, there was a television commercial for one of the big camera companies. I think it was Minolta or Nikon. I don't know, I can't remember. It was 1990, and in this commercial, the tennis player featured on it went around the world to these great sites, venues, and he clicked pictures. And this tennis player, Andre Agassi, would always close the commercial with this infamous tagline. He would say, "Image is everything." Image is everything. And ever since hearing that phrase, I've said, yeah, I guess I know what you mean. Image is everything, but I've also been a little bit suspicious. And I think you should be too. In what sense is image everything? You see, once upon a time, Andre Agassi had a thick pompadour of hair, which he kept under control with a flamboyant bandana. Once upon a time, Andre Agassi looked over the frames of his mirror sunglasses, and he would wink as if he knew something secret. Wouldn't you want to know? And once upon a time, Andre Agassi would perform this trick through the legs, masterful tennis shot, and everybody was in awe of Andre Agassi. But today, unfortunately, he's gone bald. He's gone fashionably bald. And he's developed wrinkles. Today, he wears bifocals. And today, he can't make the shot through his legs without throwing his back out. Image, it turns out, is not everything. And if we insist on image being everything, by which I mean if we insist on trying to create the impression of ourselves or our country or our church, if we insist on trying to create the impression in other people's minds that life is not messy, that life is all slick and put together, if we insist on doing that, that's dangerous to me. What needs to happen is the image needs to convey the true ambiguity of life. The true blood, sweat, and tears of it. It's exhausting, somebody once told me. What's exhausting? Trying to keep up appearances. How do you mean? Well, I've tried for so long to project this image of this happy-go-lucky wife. I've tried to project this image of the mother who would do anything for her kids, the volunteer at church who always sang in the choir or taught Sunday school. I've tried to project this image, but I don't really know how I feel about God and the world. And frankly, I'm tired. I'm tired of propping up the mask. See, image will do that. Propping up an image will be tiring. It's like in the book and the film, The Help, when the black African-American maid finally turns to the racist housewife and she says to her, "Aren't you tired? Aren't you tired? Tired of propping up this illusion?" And I remember, I don't know if anyone's big into Rock Hudson, but I remember back in the summer of 1985, and I saw the image of Rock Hudson. He was born Roy Howard Shearer, but after bouncing around San Francisco and Los Angeles, the soon-to-be heartthrob of Hollywood sent a picture to a talent scout, and they combined the Rock of Gibraltar with the Hudson River, and they gave him the name Rock Hudson. And he went on to star in such films as All That Heaven Allows in 1955, Giant in 1956, Pillow Talk with Doris Day in 1959, and then where I really got keyed in on him was McMillan and Wife, right? This famous television show. And I remember watching Rock Hudson through the movies and the television show, and I would think, there he is. That's the way to treat women, right? Rock Hudson. You project strength, and you flirt with your banter, and you're always together, and your hair is always perfect, and your jaw is always square. That's the way you do it. But on the evening of that news broadcast in 1985, when I was taking Greek at Princeton, I saw Rock Hudson's now fractured image. He was not the ladies' man. He was an emaciated, suffering with AIDS human being. And he was seated next to Doris Day, and I remember how powerful this was. He kind of reached over and he touched her cheek with his finger. Que sera, sera. What will be, will be. And it seemed to me that Rock Hudson was yearning for something. And he was tired of putting up the image. Jesus is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. For in him all things in heaven and on earth were created, things visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or powers, all things have been created through him and for him. You see, what if there's an image like a cracked window, the image of a man dying on a cross, and we don't have to exert energy to climb through the window ourselves? We're too tired. Jesus is already there, breaking through the image. I've been thinking about this all week. You and I do not have to project image of strength. You don't have to. Let it go. By the blood of the cross, Jesus is coming toward you. That's the image. You don't have to project the image of, I'm not afraid. You can be afraid and throw yourself into the arms of Christ Jesus. Pornography, propaganda, and the church. Do you know what these three things have in common? They all run on the energy of image making and promotion. I'm going to say it again. Pornography, propaganda, and the church. Let's be honest. Every man and every woman who prostitutes their bodies will eventually grow old, emaciated, and fade. Image won't be everything. And let's be honest. Every country whose politicians whip up a nationalistic fervor on the basis of false delusional promises, every country, even this one, will crumble in a heap of ruin. And yet, let's be honest. If the church is comprised of vulnerable people, vulnerable men, women, and children, if she confesses her doubts and sins and terrible cruelties done often in God's name, there's a chance of an image that can salvage the broken pieces, that can make us whole. I have a poem by Sharon Olds, and I wanted you to pay attention to the imagery that she uses. I was kind of hesitant, not sure if I should use this poem today because it has some graphic things in it too. But I'm going to do it. And I have some copies up here if you want to take it home. This is a poem by Sharon Olds called May 1968. May 1968. And I think you'll get a sense of why I'm reading it in a moment. The dean of the university said the neighborhood people could not cross campus until the students gave up the buildings. So we lay down in the street. We said, the cops will enter this gate over our bodies. Spine down on the cobbles, hard bed like a carton of eggs, I saw the buildings of New York City from dirt level. They soared up and stopped, chopped off cleanly. Beyond them the sky, black and neither sweet nor sour. The night air over the island. The mounted police moved near us delicately. Flat on our backs, we sang. And then I began to count. 12, 13, 14, 15. I counted again. 15, 16. 1 month since the day on that deserted beach when we used nothing. 17, 18. My mouth fell open, my hair in the soil. If my period did not come tonight, I was pregnant. I looked up at the sole of the cop's shoe. I looked up at the horse's belly, its genitals. If they took me to women's detention and did the exam on me, jammed the unwashed speculum high inside me, the guard's 3 fingers supine on Broadway, I looked up into the horse's tail like a dark filth comet. All week I had wanted to get arrested, longed to give myself away, I lay in the tar, one brain in my head, another tiny brain at the base of my tail, and I stared at the world. Good luck, iron arc of the gelding's shoe, the cop's baton, the deep curve of the animal's belly, the buildings streaming up away from the earth. I knew I should get up and leave, stand up to muzzle level, to the height of the soft velvet nostrils and walk away, turn my back on my friends and danger. But I was a coward. So I lay there looking up at the sky, black vault arched above us. I lay there gazing up at God, at his underbelly, till it turned deep blue and then silvery, colorless. Give me this one night, I said, and I'll give this child the rest of my life. The horses' heads drooping, dipping until they slept in a dark circle around my body and my daughter. Let's pray together.